Yeehaw!
Yeehaw! Hey, good evening, everybody. Eric Barr sitting here with my good friend, longtime companion, Mr. Monte Keller. One of the heroes that when I first started, this was a gentleman that helped me move past a lot of my stage fright and everything in the very beginning. So enough about my past with it. Mr. Monte Keller, thank you very much for hanging out with us tonight out here at the Lovedart Lounge. We are at the Lovedart Lounge. So anyway,
deep fringe of the Bal-Hinch.
The deep fringe of the Bal-Hinch. Yes, this is
my family territory, by the way.
I did not know that.
Keller Road.
Yeah. Keller Road is really.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's good to know. I never knew that.
A lot of my kin buried in the Hinch.
Well, that's something. Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, I want to thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day to come down here and be our first guinea pig for an interview.
I love being a laboratory rat.
Well, I couldn't think of anybody better. I remember when the old VIA show started, the very first episode they did, you and I were there, and I got an opportunity to sit and jam with you on that occasion. And you know, even though that show kind of went to a different direction, at Local Thunder, we're wanting to maintain our focus on the independent artists, and that's what we're here to talk with you about tonight. Is a little bit of find out where did Monte Keller come from. That's what we want to do.
I'm not sure I can say that.
Right? Yeah, you can.
Okay.
So let's get right to the meat of it, man. There's all kinds of things now. You and I used to sit. I remember several times where we would sit at the Green Street. You remember those days?
Some of them.
I was just trying to learn, and we would end up getting into these really deep philosophical conversations. And the knowledge that you possess just blows me away. I can ask you anything about Plato, and you could go into all kinds of different, stories, and the vast knowledge that you have. It blows me away, and then the talent that you have on the guitar. So
I have a hard time living this down, aren't I?
Yes, you are.
Yes,
you are. But I appreciate you being here. So like I said, let's get right down to the meat of it. I'm kind of curious. When did you get your first guitar, and what was it? What?
I used to draw pictures of guitars in grade school. My dad played guitar. There were actually a few guitars laying around the house that I used to roll marbles down the strings and bang on and do all kinds of weird things.
Right.
And I never made the connection about playing the darn thing. But along around 9th grade, I always liked music, always did, loved it. Him too. But I'd watch the commercials. My mom said when I was a baby, she said you wouldn't watch the TV shows, you'd walk in or crawl into the TV when a commercial came on because of the music.
The music was loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My brother, shortly after he got married, went to a sale and they bought a television, and he brought back a regular old little Spanish box guitar.
Nice.
And that's what got it started. My dad showed me 3 chords, just like, you traditionally hear, okay, here's a D, here's a G,
Right.
Did that, decided, well, I need to know more than 3 chords. So one day we were at a little rummage sale, and they had 3 books there. It was Alfred's Easy Guitar, 1, 2, and 3.
I remember those.
They were, I think Alfred was in competition with Mel Bay, so. But I got those books, and I taught myself to, the notes. I taught, here's the E and the F and the G, and I learned all that. And I learned to play all the little Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and all that good stuff. Thought I was pretty hot. And along the way there, my mother and father got me an electric guitar. Now, my first electric guitar was a Western Auto electric guitar, 2 pickup. Yeah, it come from Western Auto. It's called a True Tone.
Right. I believe I've heard of those.
Yeah, that and the True Tone 10-watt amp, the mighty power of the 10-watt, yes. Much rock came out of that. So I had that guitar. It was red, had it for a while, and then painted it black. which I went through a long period of black guitars. I don't know why.
Right. If I purchased one from you one time.
Oh,
well, actually, it wasn't from
most
you.
of the town did.
It was, and that was one of the selling factors. It was an old black SG.
Okay, the one with the mirror pick
The one with the mirror pick
guard.
guard.
Yeah.
And when I was looking at it and everything, and of course it was a used one up at Lions Music in Crawfordsville.
Yeah.
And they said, well, Monte Keller used to own that guitar. And I'm going, really?
Can I get a discount?
Really? Can I, can I take this thing home today? And they were like, yeah. So that was one of the first electric guitars I ever bought. Was one that you used to own, that old black SG.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Good old days.
So
you got that. When did you start? When you were going to school, were there people that you were? Of course, we all gravitate to the interests.
A lot of guys I knew played in school. Most of them were guys that I played with later, and most of them were a grade behind or two. Yeah, there weren't that many people in my class I knew that played. I knew there were some, a couple guys that I jammed with a little bit as I got going on it.
Right.
The problem I had early on was I played, looking out of the chord books and this and that, and reading the little music things.
Right.
Most of the guys I knew in school played by ear, and that came later.
Wow, so you did it right. You actually did it right.
Well, I don't know if I could say that. I did it, but what I got going on, the two albums that I absolutely wore the grooves out of, was the Stones' Get Your Ya-Ya's Out, the live album.
Yes, the live album.
And side A of John Lennon Plastic Ono Band live piece in Toronto.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't learn any of the songs on the B-side that Yoko was wailing over.
Right.
Yeah, because I could do the feedback. That was all right. But yeah, I knew did all those songs,
So you'd literally sit down and learn note for note. And
oh yeah, I can still play almost the entire. I can play the whole Ya-Ya's album note for note.
So you were hooked.
Oh yeah,
you got that bug and you were just hooked.
Oh yeah,
and it came.
You lived with the guitar all the time. That's right. You did it all the time.
Had your hands on the guitar. Now another thing that a lot of people have talked about when they watch you play, and I know sitting out in the audience and you're just tearing it up, and you've got these huge fingers, dude.
It's panic.
How do you with those huge fingers and you do it so delicately? That just
I have no idea.
It just it blows me away, and I'm not the first person to say that.
Lots of years of goofing up.
Well, there you go.
I've hidden it all. I've hidden it all through all these years of playing. Now I can get out and play and go, okay, I can do this. This is smooth.
Right on. So this is like the early '70s time frame.
Yeah,
late
I actually
early
started
70s.
playing. I mean, it's just like the Bryan Adams song, Summer of '69.
Summer '69. Yeah.
Yeah, basically that's when I started.
Nice.
Right in there.
Nice. So, what was the music scene around Crawfordsville like? What did you notice? Like bands playing, how did that work back in those days?
The neat thing in school was we'd go to the American Legion on Sundays.
Okay.
And the local bands would play in there.
Oh, cool.
They'd have bands playing in there. I think maybe like once a month they'd have like a battle of the bands.
Oh, cool.
But all the bands would play around, and then they'd play like the Animal Clubs, Moose, the Eagles. We actually, high school band I had, we played at the Eagles once, only once. I'm quite sure that was more than enough at the time for them.
I've had a few of those gigs myself.
Yeah, we went in there. We were like a bunch of freaks and playing, Alice Cooper and Deep Purple, and all those other popular country songs they liked at the time.
Right.
So yeah.
Right.
But somehow, I suppose somebody's parents got us in there. Somebody lost a bet or something and said, you should let these guys play. And we did.
Right on. That's pretty cool.
But yeah, I mean, and there were the bars, and we always standing outside looking in the bars until we finally started trying to sneak into some of them. But as that time got closer, I learned more about, people playing in the bars. And the first bar band I was ever in was with Bruce and Keith Witt, and Huey Gill. It's called Easy.
Bruce is another Bal-Hinchian that came down and played at the Lovedart party here a couple of years ago, and it was cool to see you guys on stage together. It was like,
we played. That was the first bar band I was in. Then I was legally old enough to play in a bar, and we used to play the Captain's Table. Played over at Lebanon, the Basement, just odds and ends different places down at Greencastle.
So did you find that like with the Eagles and like we were talking about a little bit ago, kind of off camera or whatever, when I was a kid, my dad worked at the Armory. He was a full-timer at the Armory, and they would have, every once in a while, they'd have bands come in there. And I'm not sure what that was, because this is a few years ago, and I was still yet pretty young. And I remember a young Monte Keller in, and I honestly cannot remember the band you were with or whatever, but you guys came in and played, and I was in the other room serving popcorn up. And
if it was around 75,
that was about it.
It was probably Raven.
Because I was about 10 or 11, so yeah, that'd have been about right. Yeah. So, Raven, that was the band. That does kind of ring a bell.
Yeah, it's Huey Gilligan on drums. Actually, Gary Dickerson was on drums first.
Right on. And Gary Dickerson, who was the Dense Groundhog.
Yeah, he played some of Dense Groundhog.
Some of that.
He's played with a lot of people. Gary's like one of the best.
Right on.
Tremendous drummer.
Right on.
But, yeah, Huey ended up playing in that later, and then Mike Breyer on bass, and Mark Easterling on guitar, and me on guitar.
Mark, yeah.
And we did a lot of original music in that band.
Cool. Now, how did the community, the crowds that you played to, how did they really react to your originals when you go out there and do that?
Sometimes it was all right. I mean, usually, like if we played a high school dance, you play after a basketball game or something. I usually would get up and tell them it was by Sabbath. I'd say, "Here's the new Sabbath song," and we'd play one of ours.
Right.
Because we didn't.
And they all go, yeah,
we didn't. Yeah, it's great. Aussie. Yeah, and it didn't sound a thing like Sabbath, but we didn't. We didn't know how that stuff would be accepted, and back then even more. It's hard enough to in a small town because you got a lack of venues and you don't have that much acceptance.
Right.
I mean, sometimes you do.
Right.
But to me, that's the hardest thing about doing original music. It's one thing to be either committed to writing and doing your own stuff or having a band that you can get that worked out with. But, it's even harder to get an audience that's responsive to it or that supports it. I mean, it's hard enough to get an audience to support anything in a small town because you just don't have the numbers.